everyone and welcome to Autocrat. Before we start today's episode, a little project we've been thinking of is going to come to fruition, so it is as such. We did a poll on our YouTube and Instagram channel a few days ago, gauging everybody's interest on us doing a Q&A retrospective episode when we're done with Chapter 1. We got a few responses of people who would be happy sending us questions, so after this episode goes live, we're going to do a post on Instagram, YouTube, our website, where you guys can send us the question you wanted to ask. We'll put a poll on the story on Instagram for people who want to be more private. And you can also send it to us by email, which is in the link on our YouTube website and also on Instagram. But yeah, so we'll do a little Q&A, send us questions, and it should be very fun. Questions can be about anything, mythology, the Roman Empire, Roman emperors, us, who knows. It can be about what we ate for lunch 3 days ago. Anyway, send us questions. It should be fun. Now over to you, Vince, to introduce us to our episode of today.
Yep, so this is episode 38, and it's Heracles/Hercules part 10, The Horses of Diomedes. And I believe you're leading us in the narrative this week.
I am. So, which number task is this?
Let's see. We're on part 10 of Heracles, and the first 2 parts were more of an introduction, so this should be the 8th task.
It is!
So Heracles probably thinks he's nearly done, but Eurystheus is about to wag a finger at him between tasks 10 and 11.
He will. And oh, by the way, the fight against the giants happens before this task, according to Diodorus. Remember the fight with the giants?
Yes, the giants rising up against Zeus and Hera summoning Heracles to fight against the giants on their behalf.
Yes.
I think Heracles and Hera actually reconcile shortly after this point, but who knows? The mythology is a bit all over the place in terms of timing. I don't know if that's true.
Well, in any case, if you wanted continuity from episode 4, you've got it.
Apparently, yeah.
On to the task.
Yeah.
Eurystheus asked Heracles to fetch the horses, or mares, of Diomedes.
Right.
This is a man from Thrace who is the son of Ares.
Okay.
He is the king of the bellicose people called Bistones.
Right, so the Bistones like a good fight.
Now this horse is not like the kind of cuddly horsey you might think of. It is a horse that eats human flesh.
Okay. Little bit different. Would make horse riding a more interesting experience if some of the horses were randomly like that, but okay.
Now, we think those horses might have been racehorse, but I'm not sure what the meaning of the word coursers is, so if you know it, do let us know. Now, Diomedes needed to keep feeding his horses, but as you can gather, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't want to get close to them.
So how does he end up feeding these horses then?
He dictated that anyone who enters his land should be taken.
Right.
If they were fat enough, they should be killed and fed to the horses. I'm
intrigued what measuring system they used for this, but that's horrifying.
It is, yes. Also, I'm sure skinny people are as tasty.
Yeah. It seems strange that he wouldn't just fatten people up if you're going to sacrifice people to terrifying horses anyway, but sure, go this route. Lucky for people who aren't deemed fat enough to feed to horses, I guess.
Anyway.
So, Heracles has been tasked with fetching some terrifying horses.
He has. So how is that gonna go? Well, he took a group of people who volunteered to go with him. Now,
volunteered?
Did they volunteer? Were they just groupies that wanted to follow him around in the hope that he'd marry them? Were they forced? We don't know.
Did they have shirts with tour dates of the 12 tasks? 1280 BC, Nemean Lion. Woo!
That would be funny.
I'm really sold on this idea, actually.
They overwhelmed the guards and took them to the sea.
Okay.
However, the warriors came to get the horse back.
Right, so they've got the horses, they're by the beach, but the Bistones aren't happy about it.
But we don't get told how they got the horse. Presumably the horse were like, no, you're not tasty, but yeah, take me with you.
The horrifying idea is, those feed bags that horses have?
Yeah.
Maybe they had something like that. Keep them occupied.
Or maybe like with a donkey, instead of dangling a carrot, they dangled a hand.
I really hope someone made the joke of lending a helping hand and they got punched in the face for their trouble.
Anyway, Heracles entrusted the horses to a son of Hermes called Abderus.
Right.
Presumably, this is while Heracles is dealing with the problem of the Bistones killing their king Diomedes and routing those he didn't kill.
Yep.
However, Abderus had died.
Okay, how?
Well, the horse had killed him by dragging him around.
Right.
I seem to remember a Roman emperor that was dragged around and killed.
Oh, yes. Basil the First. We will get to him, and I have no idea how many episodes, but it's probably in the hundreds.
Nice. Well, when we get to him, we'll remember fondly that it wasn't the first.
Yeah. We'll have an Abderus memorial where people who get dragged around by various bits of wildlife go.
Because he died, Heracles founded the city of Abdera.
Okay. It's a nice memory, I suppose.
Yeah, very nice memory.
Doesn't feel like he knew this guy very well, so maybe it was guilt over the fact that this was one of his groupies and he just didn't have any clue who this guy was, so had to pretend he knew him really well.
Now, can you tell us what Guerber says?
Apparently, Heracles fed Diomedes to his own horses to punish him for these years of cruelty.
I mean, fair.
Yeah, I can't remember if these two narratives converge so that he's first killed and then fed to the horses, or if these are two separate strands. Anyway, he took the horses back to Eurystheus, who set them free.
That seems like a terrible idea.
Yeah. Maybe Eurystheus is just a very inept king.
Also, isn't human feeding horses not scary enough to hide in a jar? Why is he out?
Maybe he ordered it from the jar.
That would be funny.
Do all of his orders have a slight echo nowadays? Do you think the slight echo of the inside of a jar?
Maybe.
The courtiers haven't seen him in a year.
Well, it seems like a bad idea anyway.
Yeah. However, the problem doesn't spread, and Greece, you'll be happy to know, isn't infested with cannibalistic horses today. So if we end up doing that 12 Labours tour that we mentioned a few episodes back, we won't be attacked by human-eating horses.
Nice, but how come they didn't pose a problem? Where did they go?
Well, they eventually made their way to Mount Olympus, and the wild animals living there killed them. Seems pretty odd that man-eating horses couldn't defend themselves, but it's lucky for the people of Greece that it happened, I guess.
Well, I guess, yeah, you're right. It's good for the people of Greece. It's good that they're not there anymore. But I feel like they could have defended themselves.
Yeah.
Are they useless horses?
Well, did we ever specify the horses actually kill people?
So maybe they're just like, oh, but like, we won't eat you. And the animals were like, ah!
But you're not dead yet, how can I eat you? This seems ecologically pretty useless. Were these horses scavengers before Diomedes found them?
Maybe.
Just horses wandering the back alleys of Athens, just eating people.
We're now going to turn to Diodorus' version of events, as we've just finished with Apollodorus with one.
Yep.
The horses were so violent that the feeding stations had to be fashioned out of brass. They were chained with iron and tore hopeless people limb from limb.
Okay, so we have in fact established these horses do kill people. Seems even stranger than they couldn't defend themselves against mountain creatures.
Once again, Heracles fed Diomedes to them. They were pacified by eating the man who had told them to go against the laws of nature by eating humans, which is against the law of nature, apparently, for horses.
So cancel my supposition from earlier. It's Diomedes who taught them to eat human flesh.
Ooh.
They weren't just scavengers wandering around. He actually taught them this, which is even more horrifying.
Now, in that version of event, Eurystheus dedicated them to Hera, and Diodorus says their lineage continued down to the day of Alexander the Great.
Right. I mean, maybe we can reconcile these two narratives by making up our own version.
Yeah.
Well, perhaps Diomedes was fed to his horses after Heracles beat the Bistones, like we were saying. The horses then travelled to Olympus after being consecrated and set free. Some were eaten, but some continued until the days of Alexander the Great. I mean, who knows, maybe Bucephalus, that horse that Alexander really loved, was a descendant of the horses of Diomedes.
Maybe.
That's entirely speculation, but it's fun to imagine.
But also, if they continued until Alexander the Great, how did they disappear?
I guess no one said that they weren't around afterwards, but maybe they were taken on the campaigns to conquer Persia and all just died in his battles.
Well, if they're still around, then we should warn you guys to be careful when you meet a horse.
This feels like the start of an advert. Do you own a horse descended from the mares of Diomedes? Call this number. I mean, we know that Alexander the Great, as far as I remember, marched his armies through quite harsh deserts, so maybe the horses all just succumbed to heat.
Maybe. Or maybe it was so great that they thought, oh, he's so great. Let's just be nice.
We have to be the end of our lineage. He's just too powerful.
Anyway, thank you for listening to this episode. As a reminder, we have this new thing coming, which is
our recap of Chapter 1 in episode 49, so I think in 11 weeks from now. But as part of that, we plan to do a quiz, we were going to do a bit of a recap, but also a Q&A segment where you can ask us anything, and hopefully we'll get to all questions. So if you have a question, feel free to get in touch with us on our social media or at autocratpodcast@gmail.com. So have a great week, everyone.
Have a great week.
Well, that was a fun topic.
It was. I'm proud I remember that there was that thing in that got right to battle.
That was
you didn't even remember.
That was incredible. It was a stag that time I was on the horse.